I got to take a breath sometime, especially when I'm starting something absolutely new and something that's going to be really, really awesome and amazing. And so I want to welcome you to a series called A Piece of Her. This series is where I'm going to mix a little bit of boldness with a lot of grace. And I am your host, Dr. LaToya. And I am so glad to share more about me. So let's dig in. All right, so I am so extremely excited to be joined today by Beth Ann Banks, who is what I would consider to be a person that everyone needs in their life. Everyone needs a Beth Ann Banks, who I affectionately call Betsy, but who has been like a mother. By nature, she is my cousin, but she's everybody's auntie, cousin, and mama all wrapped up into one. And so I'm so excited for her to be here today because once again, I told you that I'm doing something absolutely new, and I believe that it's going to be absolutely amazing. And do you know that whenever you go into a delivery room, that you always need someone to help push you and push that baby out? And so today I'm going to be joined by someone that I believe has been so significant in my life. And I would like to think that she has helped me to arrive to this space that I'm in even today. And I can remember, I just kind of want to share a quick story about her that really blessed me even more so recently. I was in a really tough place within the last year. And I remember saying, I need to go back home. Sometimes we think about home being a particular address, but sometimes home is just a space, and it's a safe space. I often tell folks that you cannot take off your armor around everyone, and everyone cannot come into the space where you are totally transparent and vulnerable, and especially when there's a lot of expectations riding on you. And so I found myself traveling down the road full of tears, driving until it clicked that I needed to go back home. And that was to go pay who many call affectionately Aunt Beth Ann, who I call Betsy, who I look at as a mom, and just be able to go into that space and say, you know what, I'm not in a good space. And right now I can't be what I need to be to others because I'm having a hard time with me. And so I remember just arriving at her house and being able to just come in. I had not probably seen Aunt Beth Ann, who I'm going to let y'all call her Aunt Beth Ann. She's known to me like a mom, but y'all can call her Aunt Beth Ann. I hadn't seen her in such a long time, but it was like we clicked and we connected right away. And I was able to just totally just release, relax, and cry as much as I needed to that day. And I didn't have to be Dr. LaToya, but I could be Toy, and I could be Toya, and I could just be free to be me. So I want to welcome you, Betsy, to...
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I thank you so much because you are always willing to jump in. And I know today you probably were like, what is Toy got me into now? And so we're going to get through this together. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about being a gentle giant. And so I want to read this. I want to see what your thoughts is about this, because that's one of the things that I've always been able to do is come to you with different ideas. As a little girl, being able to bounce off what I was thinking and all of this. And you will always, and this is what I love about you, is because you are the gentle giant, because whether or not I was way off or whether or not you thought I was on the right path, you were going to tell me the absolute truth. No sugarcoating, no nothing, because you knew like, I'm not going to send this girl off, right? And so when I think about the gentle giant, this is what I came up with. I went in and looked it up, and it refers to a person or animal that appears large, strong, or influential, but possesses a gentle and non-aggressive personality. It's a description term highlighting a contrast between physical presence and behavior. And so there are pieces of me that are very bold and courageous, however, and very powerful, which I had to learn that. I didn't know until probably, I want to say almost probably 2 or 3 years ago, is that the boldness and the powerfulness that I now know that I possess, I didn't know that it was there. And so sometimes it could come over very maybe overpowering because I did not know that strength was there. I saw myself as being more timid and more soft and more, maybe a little bit reserved and pulled back until I discovered that through a conversation with a friend. And so one of the things that I have begun to talk about a lot is just because I'm meek don't mean I'm weak.
Right.
And I often think about you and how you were able to go into spaces without having to say too many words. Right. And people were always curious about you because just your presence of walking into a room basically shows so much power where you didn't even have to say anything. It's just the presence alone that commanded attention and commanded respect. And so I watched you do that oftentimes where sometimes in situations where people were all over the place in their emotions and totally freaking out and responding. And, I often say, I know we're going to talk about this later on down the road, but just coming out of a single parent home, being raised in poverty, I had some family members that, they like, no, we gonna pop the trunk, and so understanding that, you can have so much power and ability to influence and just be very, very meek and reserved, and people still have to put respect on your name. And so, tell me what made you get to that point, because you just, I don't know if anybody ever, you saw that within someone else or what, but you just displayed that to me. I always picked up on that from you.
Well, first of all, being my mother's only child. So I was an only child, and my father and my mother were both very confident in their professions and around their family members. So they taught me to be confident. And even if maybe sometimes you are crumbling on the inside, when you walk in a room, you don't have to be the loudest person. You don't have to high five everybody and make a big scene. Sometimes you can just listen and pay attention to what's going on and read the room. And you can come in and sit in the corner, or you can come and sit in the middle. And if you just kind of observe, you don't have to make your presence known by just talking or yelling out. It's just that on the inside, you're paying attention. Okay, this is what needs to be done. Let me try to talk to this person about this, and let me see what this person, you can't overlook everybody around you. So when you go in, you just go, you don't have to wear everything on your sleeves. You don't have to go in like with your emotions, like, oh, I have an attitude, or I'm mad, or, you can go into a room where, everybody is, sad and broken. First you have to pray about it and figure out like, what do they need and what can I give of myself? Or if it's just to listen, but walking in someplace, sitting down, everybody doesn't have to know you're there. For you to be effective and to kind of maybe change the atmosphere and not let the atmosphere change you. And so, you picked up on that as a young girl. I mean, I saw that in you from when you were small, that you might not be the one running around chasing the dog or chasing the cat or playing or tagging, but you were paying attention to what was going on. And so for me, I felt like that was something that I had, that we both had that in common. And so you can be overlooked sometimes because people think you're so quiet, you're so timid. No, that's not really the case. It's just like, I want to know what's going on too, but I don't have to yell it. I don't have to be out there and be the first one in the line, be the head of so, you just needed somebody to nurture that. And so it wasn't always a push or a slap on the back, of your head, or it was just walking in front of you or walking next to you. That's all you needed, was just a little, a gentle nudge or a gentle, no, that's fine. You're going to make mistakes and, that's okay. You don't have to be loud and screaming. And although you were a cheerleader, but no, you just had that that little something inside of you that resonated with me because that's how I was. And people sometimes think, oh, she's too quiet or she's so
Right,
shy
right.
or, but you know, everything going on. You can
Yeah.
pick up on everything. You can pick up on personalities. You can pick up on this person is, you know, you can pick up on their little traits about them. And then you can just read that part of their personality or that part of what they need, or maybe they just need to listen, somebody to listen to them, you know. So.
And that's amazing that you bring that out, because all of what you say, I use that now. So it's I didn't realize that even back then that I had the ability to, I always say I observe. Like, I love observing people, where people are coming in and they coming into the room and they have to do all of the talking. Usually I'm like, I got everybody figured out before they figure me out, you know,
Right.
because I've taken time to really study their behavior and see what's going to make them motivate them and how they're going to respond and all of those different things. One of the things that you just said is so funny, because I tell the members of my church that, like, no, we don't go in and adjust to any temperature in the room. Like, no, we're going to be able to move, and we're not going to be reactive. We're not going to be explosive. You're not responding, but we respond, but we are not going to overreact.
Right.
But one of the things that you mentioned is the whole area of confidence.
Yes.
Is that some people are very intimidated when you're just confident, and it's like, well, they're arrogant. And I'm sure you've heard that too. You know, they're arrogant. They think that this or that. And it's just like, no, I'm just confident in being who I am. And one of the things that when I think about a giant does take up space, you know, and they're confident in knowing who they are and the strength and the power that they have. And sometimes it's good space, but then sometimes it's like, okay, I'm too, you know, I need to kind of adjust, right? And you talked about helping others, but I think about with the giant, I go back to the story of, I remember you taught me, because there are so many lessons that I learned from you, but you taught me on one day, someone asked me if I wanted something. I don't know what it was, but you must have observed me that every time someone asked me if I wanted something, I would say yes, yes. Now, you know, coming out of poverty, you know, a poverty mindset, you automatically think that anytime you are, you know, provided with the opportunity, that you take that, right? Because I don't know if that's going to come back again. I don't know if this cup of water going to come back again, so I'm going to take it. I don't know if this, you know, cherry Pepsi is going to come back around, so I'm going to take this opportunity. And I remember you looking at me and you were like, Toy? And I said, yes. She said, every time someone asks you if you want something, you don't always have to say yes.
Right.
And you said, because, and you always, and that's what I loved about you, because you didn't come in and just start saying what you should and shouldn't do. You always helped me to understand why. And you said, because if, you know, eventually these people gonna get tired of, you know, they gonna just say, this girl gonna say yes. So you know what? Because sometimes what people are doing is asking, you know, once again, when we're talking about poverty, and let's talk about even social classes, that's one of the things with understanding how to navigate social classes that I learned that I can apply today, that I may get into some different social groups and they're not looking for me to come in wanting my hand, you know, like, yeah, give me. So sometimes it's not a matter of just that you want something, it's just a matter of just being courteous and polite. Right. And I didn't know that. So you were a gentle giant at that point, because you're like, no, I got to redirect her, but I'm going to be very, very gentle. And so now translate that into today as a gentle giant. Now I'm learning that, you know what? Every opportunity that comes along, you don't have to say yes to. And perhaps, guess what? Sometimes there's an opportunity that you may be given, but perhaps there's someone else that really that opportunity should be for. And then if you come in and you're being a giant, taking up all of the space, then it's like that cup of water where you didn't need that cup of water, girl. You ain't thirsty. You just drank up all of this stuff. And now you're saying yes to everything that comes your way. And now it's like, you know what? And it's not about being arrogant. It's humility, saying that, you know what? I'm good. You know what? This is an opportunity that someone else can take advantage of and go from there. So that was one of the things that that I learned from you. I also, because, and we're going to get into that, just being raised by a single mom,
Right.
but then having on both of my sides, my aunts are very aggressive. And so you're not going to run nothing on them, like
Very confident,
you
very
very,
strong-willed.
very confident, very strong will. So I got that, I got that part down. I had to learn that in order to survive in certain environments. But there's one thing that I also learned from you too. And that was the whole idea of how we must watch. I had that tone. So everybody knows the tone. It's the auntie tone. It's the grandmama tone. It's the tone that gets people in order really quick, like really quick, which is you don't got to get a shoe, a switch. All you got to do is just give the tone. But you had an ability, and I haven't mastered that yet. So I got the tone down because I got that from everybody. But now I'm trying to get the finesse and the tone, but then the nurturing part, which we talked about, which you kind of mentioned earlier, which is saying, okay, how do I take all of this strength and all of this power, and I kind of call it the effect of a honeybee, which means that you got to have the ability to pack a punch and have some power, but you got to put some honey on it when you dealing with people if you want it to be effective. So with me, I did not have to question whether or not your advice or your suggestions and what you were trying to impart into me. I never questioned that. And I believe the secret to that was the effect of being able to give that sweetness and mix it in with that tone. In other words, I want you to know that I'm serious. Like I'm very serious about what I'm saying to you. But at the same time, I understood that it was out of a place of love. And I believe that that's what a gentle giant is able to do, which is to show up and be able to say, yep, I'm going to walk in meekness and humility. But at the same time, just because I'm meek don't mean that I'm weak.
Not weak at all. It's not a sign of weakness. Not at all. And you have to come from a place of love. But love is easy to say, but sometimes it's harder for people to show. And it is sweet. It is kind. It's gentle. It's nurturing. And just wanting to see you do well and wanting you to learn. It wasn't barking at you and it wasn't scolding you. It was, what can I teach her that she just did? It's just a gentle nudge. That's all. That's all it is. It's really simple. And you have to have patience, but you have to really love somebody. You have to love and look over when people make mistakes, because we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
So as a young girl, if I wanted you to do behave a certain way, the best way was for me to show you. But if you didn't quite pick up on that, it wasn't for me to say, hey, no, don't do that. That wasn't going to help you, because, that's like a joke. And it, be like, oh, wait a minute. So your personality was so similar to mine. It would just be like, no, Toy, let's go this way, or let's just do it this way. And that's another thing, Toya. I'm sorry. Toy, Dr. LaToya, Toy.
No, you call me Toy.
Yeah,
call me Toy.
That's all it can be. But you were such a sweet, sensitive.
Yes.
But you were very sensitive, and that wasn't a bad thing. It was a sweet thing. It was like, you can't overlook her just because she's a little sensitive. Like, you didn't respond well. You can't, I only have one child, but I love so many like a child, like they're my own children. And so you can't treat them all identical.
Right.
Because you're all made up differently. So, somebody else might respond to, a curt, yelling or, whatever, but you weren't that way. But I didn't want it to stifle you. So I wanted you to, like, what lesson can I get from it? Okay, I messed this up, but what can I get from it? So sometimes I would just walk ahead of you instead of running away or, yelling at you or saying, no, don't do it that way. Everybody didn't need a spanking. But our parents and our grandparents could only do what they were taught.
Right.
So a belt or a switch or a flip flop or whatever it was to redirect you, that's not how you responded. I mean, you were hurt. You took that hurt you. That was like somebody just beating you. It's like that's not how I want her to be. I want you to be gentle, but I wanted you to be confident. So command whatever you're doing, command in whatever you're working, command
Right.
in the classroom, command if you were cheerleading, command if you were on the debate team or whatever you did, you know. And if you messed up, I wasn't mad. I wasn't judging you.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is a lesson. And it was just an obstacle, a barrier, but it doesn't stop you. You can get through it. Or you can go around it. We'll figure it out. You just can't, you know, smack you in the head and be like, no, Toya, sit down and shut up. You know, that didn't help.
Right.
Because that, to me, that's hurtful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
and that introduces what we see today, where we see these generational cycles.
For sure.
And I think in a way that helped me to even break some things that, you know, we all have issues. So we're not, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, like you said, our parents don't get manuals and all of those different things. But I mean, I have been a person that says, you know, I had to go through a process of saying, you got to heal from this, you know, what you thought you deserved and all of those different things. Like you have to heal from that, and you have to come from out of that place.
Right.
But then it's helped me to see through that nurture, because sometimes there's a difference between that provision. And sometimes parents, you'll hear the classic line, I've done everything and I provided you, I bought you this, I did this. But that's provision. But there's a different thing that I saw in you that says, but I need to nurture you. You know, I need to be in a place that I can get you to where you need to be without destroying you and breaking you down, you know? And so we kind of have those generations where we've been kind of trained to, you know, like, I'm gonna break you all the way down and then you're left there to pick up the pieces. And so, yeah. And so it's amazing because I've seen you, not just for me, but, you know, I a lot of times I would get upset because I'm like, nope, this is my Betsy. Like, no, all of y'all get your own, you know, get your own, you know. Today, the young people say that's gatekeeping. So I guess I would be gatekeeping. I'd be gatekeeping the Aunt Beth Ann's. And so I guess that's what they would say. But now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to come in and in my own way, be that auntie, you know, that person that shows up with that motherly love and saying, how can I take these things? But it took a while for me to kind of step back and see what I experienced and saying, like you said earlier, I've made some mistakes, like even on my own journey to motherhood. And now how do I come back out of that?
Right.
And so,
you have to, but you have to give yourself grace and you have to forgive yourself. And I think we talked about this before. Sometimes when we make a mistake, and it can be big, it can be something major, and you keep it's in your head playing over and over, and then you have to say, you know what, to get past this, I have to forgive myself. I didn't know that was rude. I didn't know that was mean, or the person took it differently. Like I didn't, you know, I'm not a loudspeaker, me personally. I'm not a yeller, or I'm not, but I didn't have to yell. It was just me. I didn't have brothers and sisters to argue with. So, you know, that it's natural for me to talk quieter, but, you know, like forgiving myself. There are people who, you know, you didn't really do anything to them.
right.
But they're holding some little grudge. But that's you.
Yeah.
That's you. So I've forgiven myself. If I said it wrong, I'm sorry. And if you don't want to talk about it, when you're ready to talk, I never force myself on anybody. Everybody, it's a season. So like if life, you know, life is life. And if you want me to, if you ask me for anything, if you ask me for help, or if you ask for conversation or advice, I'm going to always give that. That takes nothing. But I'm not going to force myself. And it's okay to not be invited to the party.
Right.
It's okay to not be invited to the reception, or, you know, you can't be mad at that. And I figure if I'm not invited, that's not where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
If I'm supposed to be there, then I would be there, right? So, you know, just giving yourself that grace and saying, I learned from that. You know, I'm not going to keep doing that over and over. You're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over. You know, that's hurtful to somebody else. That's a mean, bitter person.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever want to be a bitter person.
Right.
There's some things that are hurtful, but I mean, I can't hold that. That makes me bad. I have to forgive them and forgive myself and say, okay, I'll do better next time. I mean, you know, I'll give better advice next time or whatever.
And that makes a gentle giant, because it takes a lot of strength to be able to say, you know what, I didn't get invited to the party. And that's okay, you know, and I recognize that I may have made some mistakes, but sometimes people will slap a label on you. And I've been telling people, I think I was telling some people even last year, y'all still got me in 1998. Like the LaToya from 1998.
Right.
There's a whole new LaToya in 2024 and 2025.
Absolutely.
But you still have me locked there because that's where you choose to keep me, at. And guess what? I can't ruminate over that. I can't lose sleep over that anymore.
No.
But I choose to kind of go on, and so sometimes I think that taking up space, I have learned, and I might not have always had this right and may not, but I have on this journey where I'm at now is that I'd rather remove myself from certain spaces so that people can be free to be able to have the space that they need to do so that there's no distractions,
Sure.
And there's no, well, you really have some things going on with you, but you really want to make it about me, and so it can be very painful. But I've watched you be able to navigate tough situations and still with so much grace, with so much grace.
I know how to protect my peace.
Yes, protecting that peace. All right. So, one of the things I want you to share with the audience is when did you see the evolution of, I know of myself, so of me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, when did you start to see that? I know there was a lot of the journey.
I would probably say it was high school when I could see that there was so much more you wanted to do. And then whatever limitations or whatever things came up, you still stay focused. And you were able to not, of course, I would talk to you to try to encourage you, like, that's okay. We'll get through that. We'll get through that. But you had dreams and you had aspirations and you didn't want to be stuck in a rut. You wanted to kind of set new, your own path. You didn't want to you didn't follow anybody's path. You did your own. And so if it was branching out into, taking classes or going to college or doing this, if you would be up all night when you had a little baby, I used to tell you all the time, you can do anything. You can graduate just like everybody else, but it's going to be harder for you because you have to stay up. You have to take care of your baby, and you have to write a paper. Yep. You have to cry. Different things that other college students might never experience. You had to, but you navigated it, and you just kept going. It wasn't like huge steps. It was like little steps, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it'd be the next thing, and you say, oh, Betsy, this is what I'm doing. I'm like, okay. But I wanted sometimes you to just stop for a little bit and just enjoy that moment. And not always, but you were always looking for the next. Not that you weren't satisfied. You wanted to do better. And I wanted you to do better. And you did better and more and better and more, but you did it, and you didn't need a lot of accolades. You didn't call people and say, oh, yeah, I'm taking this class, or I got this degree. You just did it. It'd be like, graduation's coming up, or this is coming up, and so you were so driven, but it started around high school, and it started when you had a little baby, and you just, you figured it out. It was like, can you keep the baby? Can you, so I can get to this, so I can do that. And as time went on, then your baby saw you doing that. And it was a great example because you didn't have to tell her. You just showed her. You don't have to talk about it. You just did it. And so it just kept going and kept going. And every step I was so proud, but I was never surprised. It was like, there's more. There's more. And I knew there was more, but when you feel like you've reached that part where, like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break here, and then you take a break for a minute and it'd be something else. But it was always about 15, 16, and just on and on. And it was amazing. It was amazing to watch. It was amazing that you were so strong and so able to just pull, like, no matter what, we don't let chatter.
Right.
What other people, like, you just stay focused because people are going to talk anyway. Like, oh, you got another degree. Okay. That's a good thing. Oh, you got another this. Oh, you got another car. It could be whatever, but you do things for yourself. You don't do it to get, applause from other people or, So you started young. Yeah. But you never feel, it never went away. It was just always there. It was always up and up. It's like, we're up from here. Yeah. But it was always, you always wanted that. And that was always, so, people would say, is that your daughter? No, that's my niece. Well, no, it's my cousin. So from a small town, some people will say, that's your cousin. Well, yeah, it's my cousin. But she got a lot of me in her.
Yeah.
You know, I'm proud of that, but I don't gloat on it. You know, I wouldn't tell people, you know, I know my place and I'm fine. I know my role in everybody's life. I know when I say I love you, I love you. I don't just say, oh, I love you. It means something to me. I love you. And there's enough of me to share with anybody. I treat this person different, but I'm still me. I'm not going to change who I am. And I'm not going to spread myself so thin that I'm not genuine. I can't change who I am. I'm never going to change who I am, ever, for anybody. You know, I'm unapologetically Beth Ann.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes.
And, you know, what God has for me is for me. I can't be angry about relationships. I can't be jealous of someone else's relationship. I know my relationship with you.
Yeah.
I know my relationship with whoever, whatever family member or friend. It's sincere. It's genuine. My relationship is genuine. I don't have to feel like, let me sneak to dinner with you. Let me sneak to the movie. No.
Right.
I'm confident. I'm fine. You know, I'm Aunt Beth Ann. I'm Aunt Beth Ann. I'm Betsy. I'm different. I'm Mom. You know, I'm whoever I am. I want to remain that way. But watching you has made me proud, like a mom. Like, you know, a lot of people I claim as my babies. You were one of the younger ones, you know, but I am proud of the things you've done, and if there's more, I'll be your biggest cheerleader, but I don't have to be in your face,
right,
you know. And the biggest thing is praying for you to do what is best for you and what is pleasing to God. So my prayers for you and your family never stop. If I don't see you for 5, 6, 7 years, that doesn't change our relationship. You know, people think they have to be all up under you and follow you and go to dinner and come to your house. And I don't hate on anybody's relationship with whoever, because I know my place with everybody. And that's all I can be, is me for them, you know? And not try to take away from that. And not try to be the star. If you're the star in the room, if it's your event, you're the star in the room.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I can celebrate you and be happy for you and be on the inside. Yeah, that's my Toya. Yeah, she did that, you know? So keep doing it. You've been growing for a long time.
Yeah. That answers a lot, because everything, if there were people in the room right now, I would say, did y'all just hear her say that? That's me, you know, like just the person that, if I accomplish something, it's not, because I think some people have chalked it up as, oh, she's just ungrateful. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that I am not looking for, like you said, the applause of other people. No. I don't do it because I do it because it's something that God has assigned me to do. So it should be, that's just what it should be, you know? Right. And so needing the attention and the approval. And now I've learned, Betsy, in life too, is that where I might not have needed that, I did not gather that other people did. And so that's where the being misunderstood will come into play, because I had to learn that. Like, I go about and like, yep, I got, you know, I did this and God has allowed me to do all these things and I'm just doing what he's told me to do. And so it's just like, you know me, I was loyal to parents to probably sometimes like, okay, whatever you tell me to do, that's what I'm going to do, you know, because that's what I want to do. And so I find myself being the same way with God. And so when he gives me the opportunity to do something, we know that I can't do nothing without him. Right. But, you know, I don't have to say, well, they didn't come to your part. They didn't do this. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I think some people really think, no, she's just putting on. She's really, and it's like, no, you just get to a point where it's just like, okay, I'm doing what the Lord told me to do. That's it. And I think that they called you BB for Beth Ann Banks. And one of the things, it's like you saying so much stuff that I say, and we haven't sat and talked like this for a long time. But it's like, if I had some people in here, they'd be like, well, she sounds just like this is the same stuff that she's saying. And so I always tell people that you just have to be, you know, like you just got to be, you got to be all of who God has called you to be. And just do that. But be happy about what it is that you've been called to do, but that you're not caught up in what this person think and how they feel. And it's just that I'm just out here trying to be me, you know, and that's just that, you know, so it's not a what you doing and I'm size. It's just like, nope. I've always been a very, very focused individual. Yeah. So it's like you said, like being able to come back and say, let me get out there and do what I think. Okay, that ain't working. Let me pull back. I'm not sitting here looking at what is, I'm trying to be focused on what is God put before me? What is it that He wants me to do? And that has been the hardest and toughest thing, because genuinely, as people, we want to be liked. We want people
Right.
to, we want to be understood. We want to be embraced.
Right.
And that's not always the case, with that. And so as a gentle giant, it's more or less, how do I still go about life and do all of the things that God has called me to do, but still be gentle with maybe how other people may respond to that?
Right.
Or what it might be that they need that maybe I didn't, where it's more or less like, okay, well, I don't need you to, yeah, it'd be nice if you show up to the party, but if you don't, I'm okay.
Right.
I for real. I'm not taking it no type of way. It's just
Absolutely.
that you have things to do, like something came up. You can't make everything. I tell people all the time, you can't make everything, every event. If I don't, like you said, if we don't see each other and I see you next week with someone else, is not, well, they've replaced me. It's like, no. I know where we stand, and we're good with that.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about some gems of wisdom that we can most certainly drop to our audience today, when we think about the gems and what we have, what we can do. Because there's so many gems that we can drop. And I appreciate you praying for me, because that means a lot to me, that even though we're not as connected as we were when I was younger and being brought up, that I'm still in your prayers, and your prayer changes things. I remember when I went to your house that night, I always kind of tell that story about how I had that accident. Well, it was a near accident with the train, almost being ran over, but by a train, in the back roads on a dark night, trying to make it back home. I was feeling revived and refreshed, but had this just really, really, crazy experience that night on the back roads. But one of the things that I remember is the fact that when I got ready to walk out the door, you said, I decree Psalms 91 over your life, and Psalms 91 is just my scripture, is one of the first ones that I really, really took to when I gave my life to Christ. And so just knowing that, if we think about whether it be a mother, an auntie, a mentor, just continuing to cover individuals in prayer, the ones that you have mentored and those that you've poured into. I think sometimes what happens, speaking back to your point, sometimes we ourselves being disconnected, and we can come bitter with our mentees, now growing into a person that's now mentoring other folks, you see, oh, well, they've outgrown me. They've gotten to, and it's just like, no, they just on to their next assignment, And so realizing that there was a baseline of Beth Ann coming in and really laying a foundation when I think about mentorship and the support and all of that. But then there are always other people that come down the road that have something that maybe this person doesn't have. So I had to tell myself that, like, you know what, this person, you had this, you have the ability to take people and say, you know what, you a little rough and you can use that. Because I tell people that all the time, you can use that, but we need to know how to use that. And so what you got the sting, but let me show you how to use some honey on that.
Right.
But there may be someone down the road that is going to give you something else that I necessarily may not have. And that is okay. Because along my journey, I've been around and had some, mentors that, things kind of can go a little bit different, when they kind of, there's a separation, or they feel as though, well, my season is up, so I'm just gonna just drop out, instead of letting that individual know that, listen, I'm still here praying for you. I'm still watching. I'm still concerned about you. So being that gentle giant is being able to say that I'm okay. I'm okay with the role that I play, and I know where I stand.
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't have to, like I was saying earlier, you don't have to always be in their face. I don't always have to see you. There's ways of checking in on you if I want to, but just praying for you, that's the best thing I could do, is to pray for you, covering for you. And it just reminds me of, like you said, when you were leaving the house and when you called me and telling me about the train, I was like, thank you, Jesus. I mean, you can't assume or take things for granted or people for granted, but you also can't be so sensitive and so I'm not, like, if you don't call me or if you don't acknowledge me or if you don't have to, you don't lose that relationship just because you're a little far away or because a little time or there's miles. But if people are comfortable and they're doing it for the right reason, I'm not offended if you say, oh, I was with Sister so-and-so or Mr. and Mrs. So. That is awesome. What can they pour into you that maybe I couldn't?
Right.
Like I always say, little babies, when they're born, they're so sweet and gentle and empty. We feel them. It's like, you pour a little bit of this and you pour a little. And so be careful who you let around your kids.
Right.
Because some of that pours in and it sticks.
Yes.
So, we pour into, and you want to pour into, I want to love as many people as I can, but I can't always be there physically.
Right.
But I send my love or I send my prayers. And so, hopefully people will learn that just because you don't always acknowledge them or point them out in a crowd, or if you're someplace, like, oh, Toya forgot about me, or she forgot where she came from, or let me, I'm so proud of you. You did this, you did that. You don't always have to say that. Some things don't have to be said. I wouldn't have to, I love you without me saying I love you, but I'll say it. But I love you just because I care for you and I pray for you and your kids and your husband and anything that you've done. I want it to be pleasing to God. And I don't think you do things for self-gratification or, for people saying, oh, great job, Toya. I think you do it for the right reasons. And I remember when you got your call that weekend, you remember Jasmine was baptized? And we went to church and you were shaking and your hands were all sweaty.
Oh, wow. And that was when I got the call from the Lord. Yeah.
Yes, that was an interesting day.
She said it's an interesting day.
It was an interesting day. Yeah, I remember that. So, we've been through a lot and seen a lot of things, a lot of challenges, and you, with God, and you trust in God and praying and asking Him to order your steps, you've always made great decisions. That doesn't mean you didn't make mistakes. Yeah. But I don't think you've intentionally tried to shut people out or hurt people, because that's not how we are. I wouldn't want you to intentionally hurt. If you did, I'd have to tell you, like, that's not right.
And you would. You would tell me. Yep. You would tell me in a way that I would. And someone said to me once before, why do I feel like you just told me off, but I feel really good about it? Oh, yeah. Like, I feel really empowered, but I know that you just talk. It's a skill. Yeah. And I would go one step further and say it's an art, because everybody can't do that. And it's like, now, are you ready to go to lunch? Yeah. And some people think, well, that's being fun. No, it's not. It's about, look, I want to see you on the right path, and I want to redirect you. Right. And I really want you to receive what I'm saying. Right. So I got to be gentle with you. And honest. And that's the giant part.
People don't like honesty.
People don't like honesty. Just like when you said you got to be honest about when I got pregnant with Ariane, and you knew, and you said to me, you said, you and Sean been having sex. And I said, what? And I looked like, I said, what kind of and we were in the car. I remember we were in the car in front of the house. And I'm thinking, he was like, nope, your walk is different. Your walk is different. But you could have came off and said, girl, what did you do? You could have said a whole bunch of stuff. You could have called me all types of names. You could have did it in the most horrible way. But you said, now, let me talk to. I don't remember if you got him, because I did. Sean loves you. Yeah, that's why he says he heard you're coming. He said, "I love Betsy. Betsy is the realest out of everybody. She's a realist. And so, but shortly after that, it was probably 2 years later, Sean and I got pregnant, and I came to you, and the first thing you said is, you got to tell your parents. And I'm thinking like, no. So either you gonna do it, or I'm
Right.
going to do it. And I was just like, oh my God. But I felt so safe, like this was a situation that was, was a bit scary. And so I had you there basically holding me accountable. So like, now listen here, because this is the boundaries here. Like, yes, I'm sweet and I'm gentle and I love you, but I will tell on you, so you gonna do this yourself. And so what I saw you do now is that I'm in a tough situation. And so now when I fast forward to today, how do you tell someone about themselves and coach them out of their mess, or out of the situation that they're in, without making them feel low and pushing them down and all of that, but being very gentle, but yet knowing like, no, we gonna deal with this, and and I'm gonna be here to support you. You said I can come, I can sit with you, but we need to make sure, now. And the funny thing is, you said, now which one you want to tell first? Do you think you should tell your father first, or do you want to tell your mother? And so you were, even though I was seeing you like a mom, like the cousin, the auntie, but I see you now as a coach saying, this is a situation that I'm in, and I'm in some trouble, but I'm not going to just tell you about yourself, but I'm going to help you navigate this situation.
For sure.
And because I was, excited about college, and being a first generation college student, you were able to say to me like, this is going to be tough, but
you can do it.
This is what you're going to do it. You're going to do that. And so I thank God for you, because what I did not know, everything coming out of that after that was not going to be sweet.
No.
And so we have to remember that sometimes people are going through situations, and you may be the only sweetness that they're going to experience as they go through their pains, their challenges, and their sufferings. You may be the one that God called to just really be there to just help support them. Be honest, be truthful. But they already know. I told somebody the other day, you know what? If they know that, you dealing with a parent and their child is a bit not, they already know that. They already know that. Like, what kind of support can you give? And how are we saying this in a way that's loving and makes them feel like, okay, yep, you hit me with this truth, but I feel empowered and motivated that I can move forward. And then I think with me, that's where the boldness and the courage came to life, where it's like, okay, you've been bold and courageous in all these other areas. Now you got to take this situation and you got to apply everything that you've done. And I think you've pointed that out. Like every hurdle that you went throughout high school and some of the challenges that you faced, you got to take that same strength now and you got to apply it in this situation.
But you were that time in your life, you were so vulnerable. And so I had to try to protect you from some things that I knew people were going to say and people were going to do. And I refused to let some of that even get to you, because at a young age and to be having a baby and all the things you said before, you were looking forward to college, and Sean was a sweetheart, and you were both confused. You were young, but I didn't want people to judge you for that one little comma. You can't put a period or exclamation point, at the end of something somebody does when there's more. So I didn't want you to hear all the murmuring, and you felt some of that sting.
Oh yeah,
but that was such an intense time in your life, and it was so intense for me to just try to figure out, how can I help you? I mean, I remember that day so well. You calling me at work, crying,
yeah,
and confused. And so it was like, oh, let me just try to get there as quick as I can before this attack comes, and let me just try to make it a little smoother and see what I can do. Because it's still love. You don't not love somebody because they make a mistake. You probably made a mistake before maybe people just didn't find out about. Not you specific, but I'm saying as a person.
As a person.
So if you want to help somebody, you can't be so quick to judge, because you think, oh, what did I do when somebody didn't leave me and throw me away? I got another chance, or they forgave me, or they talked me through. There was somebody. Like, I'll never just leave anybody on the side of the road, which reminds me of a story. My daughter and I were driving on the highway, and it's hilarious because it frustrated her so bad. She had a brand new car, and I was driving, and there was a little baby sheep on the side of the road, but there was a bunch of sheep on the other side, and he had got through the fence, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta go get the sheep," and she was like, "Not my new car." And I was like, "But the little baby." So we were driving. I was driving, and she was like, "Oh, Mom, no." But as crazy as it sounds, like all the sheep were at the fence, and the little baby was on the side of the highway, and this little fence was between them, and she was worried about her new car. I'm thinking I'm gonna put the sheep in the car. I'm not that crazy though, but I just wanted somebody to know there's this little baby sheep, and I'm pulling up to this house in the driveway, and I said that to say, of course, you can go after the one. Right. You don't want to forget anybody, but you do it in a way that's not embarrassing. It's not overwhelming, or you just growling at them for this. It's like, you forget you came from somewhere, you did something. So show them some grace, show them a little mercy.
Show them some grace.
Because you've done some things that maybe in the cloak of darkness, nobody ever knew about. But yours, carrying a baby at a young age, but you got through it so well. Well, we got through it all together. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was involved. A lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. Yes, poor Sean. You said poor Sean.
Poor Sean.
Yes.
I remember the beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. And I went to pick him up. Yes. Okay, Toy. So, despite any challenges or any rocky situations or whatever growing up that you may have experienced, as we all have, but speaking to you specifically, what do you think is the most beautiful part that you've taken away from that?
We did it. We didn't think we were going to do this, but we did.
Oh, we did.
We did it. So that's a wrap. That's a wrap, Gentle Giants. Remember that life is all about mixing a little bit of boldness with a lot of grace. And until next time, stay inspired, stay true to yourself, and keep shining brightly. Please, please, please like me and subscribe and share and tune in next week. Like me on Facebook, like me on LinkedIn, follow me, whatever y'all say nowadays. I've learned that I'm aging a bit. All right, we'll see y'all next week.